Things and on this Sunday morning, September the 11th, I am Pastor Carrie West, and this is my morning brief. And I just take an opportunity in this moment to highlight something from our scriptures that we will hear in worship this morning. Usually, what this means is I just pick something that is important or that I want to highlight, but I don't have time in my sermon. So this morning in worship, we're going to be hearing a couple of texts that are very challenging, at least in the original context, and the voices for whom these words come to us are really should make us uncomfortable, do make us uncomfortable, and really should help us to contemplate our life, especially as Christians and followers of Jesus and God's children. And so we're going to hear from Deuteronomy chapter 30 and then from Luke chapter 14. What I want to lift up this morning in the brief is from Deuteronomy 30, because I'm mostly going to be preaching from the gospel reading this morning. But in Deuteronomy 30, what we hear, what we're listening into is Moses giving kind of his final speech. He is not going to be going with the people of Israel, the former slaves of Egypt, into the promised land. There's a whole story on that, but he's not going to be their leader to take them into the land, and he is close to death as well. And so he's giving them kind of the last remarks, like this. Here's what I want you to seriously take with you into this new land. And so where we pick up in this story, in this speech, is Deuteronomy 30, and I want to just do verse 15, excuse me. Verse 15 says, "Look here, today I've set before you life and what's good versus death and what's wrong." Set before you life and what's good versus death and what's wrong. Now, what has struck me in this one sentence is what we think about opposites, right? Like it seems that life and death, like those are two kind of spectrums, to the two sides, right? Life and death seem like opposites. The way it's translated in the Common English Bible says what's life and what is good. And then it says, and what is wrong? But don't we often think that the opposite of good is bad, right? I think that this is very significant this morning, something for us to contemplate. What Moses is saying, what he's setting before the people is God's ways. He goes on to say, if you keep God's commands, if you keep listening to God, if you keep doing what God has asked you to do, you are going to have the kind of life that's been promised to you in this promised land. Like there is going to be this goodness. You are going to prosper. You are going to thrive in this new land. So Moses is saying, I'm offering you life and what is good versus death and what is wrong. And so I think that this is important for us to not to consider that when we are listening to God, when we're listening to the Spirit, following the Spirit, when we are following Jesus, we are going to do good, and that's what gives us life. But if we choose not, if we were to so choose not to have life, if we choose not to do good, it isn't so much that we're bad, but it's wrong. It's not the kind of life that God would have. When we choose to think about death, when we choose to just kind of do whatever we want or sit in the space of comfortableness, of just doing our own thing, what we think is right, because it could still be good, right? But it would be wrong. It would be wrong. And so I think that this is the challenge that is set before us today. As we enter into the time of worship, we're going to hear about how Jesus was really pretty straightforward, saying, you cannot be my disciple if you don't love me more. You cannot be my disciple if you're not willing to give up everything. You cannot be my disciple if you don't take up your cross and follow me. Really hard words for us to hear, I think, in these current times, in these modern times. And what Jesus and what Moses is saying is you have a choice, and we want you to choose the right thing so that you can have life, so you can have goodness, you can have prosperity, so you can enjoy and be in this life that God has given you. If you choose differently, it's wrong and it won't be right for you. And it's not what God would intend. So thinking about what's good and not so much what's bad, which is where we tend to, as human beings, go that the opposite of good is bad, but the opposite of good is wrong. And we want to, I would think we want to live and serve and be the kind of people that do what's good and to kind of create more goodness in the world. So that is our morning brief. I'm going to take a little bit different angle when we get into worship and into the message as we hear more about what Jesus had to say about being disciples and following him. Today, we are rolling out our theme or our intention for the coming year, which is to thrive. So we are going to hear a lot of good information today about where we are as a congregation and how we're moving forward into the future that God has prepared for us. So I hope that you will be able to join us in person. Our worship service will be live streamed as well. I know we have several people who are not feeling well, so please watch our live stream. And then we have a potluck and a congregational meeting, and the congregational meeting will be recorded and available for anyone who requests it. So I hope to see you in church or soon thereafter. I hope that this day is going to bring you goodness and life, and that the rest of your day be the very best of your day. And I hope to see you in church. Bye for now.